call to order the regular meeting of the Governing Board of the Litchfield Elementary School District, and we will start our meeting, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you are following along in your agenda, we are now on item 3, which is our conscious discipline brain smart start. And we will now hear from Mr. Jeremy Honak, who is in charge of our activity to commit. Jeremy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The activity is commitment, and I would like to discuss a commitment and hopefully get a commitment from everybody here regarding student success. And also under the student success is one of the pillars, and the goal: nurture positive relationships, ensure ongoing district-wide student-centered focus, and also under service, a goal: consistently communicate academic progress to all parents and guardians. So I've provided research, and it's pretty much generally known, one of the highest, strongest levers that we would have to improve our academic achievement levels, which need improving, is getting families and parents engaged in the process. Right now, our service pretty much just says communicate to parents what's going on, but we really need a bi-directional process with parents. And really, it's not about parents having to homeschool or do much of anything other than really just set expectations for their kids. And that is a huge lever. All kinds of studies, jillions of studies have shown that is an incredibly strong correlation between academic achievement. It's free for us as a school. So I would ask that our superintendent, Gunning, and our board and all of our teachers and wonderful staff and community, that we commit to increasing aggressively parental engagement, and in even in an individual way, with teachers reaching out to parents depending on their circumstance, and that the district would find ways to give incentives and show parents, no matter their circumstance, how they can set goals and expectations for their kids and follow through with them. And so that is my strongest commitment, why I marched all over and got signatures and ran, is to increase the academics. And I believe that anybody that doesn't want to follow along with that, really, I'd recommend they look elsewhere from LESD, because I think that's what we're here for and what I'm going to strive for.
Thank you, Mr. Honak. Now we will move on to item 3B, which is the board member activity to unite, which will be led by Dr. Tara Armstead. Dr. Armstead could not be with us in person, but she is joining us by Zoom, so we're going to do our best to hear what she has to say.
Hello, everybody. The activity is unity, and so I have prepared a statement. If at any time you can't hear me, please just step in and let me know. Unity, by definition, means an undivided or unbroken completeness or totality with nothing wanting, the quality of being united into one, relating to or characterized by aiming towards one. To believe that what happens in the world and society does not enter into the local classroom, school district, the local school board, or even the local individual classroom is illogical. Right now, there's a mental health crisis in the lives of many youth in this country. Right now in this country, there is a financial crisis in the homes of many families post-pandemic. Right now, there is a major crisis in the deficit of available certified and highly qualified educators. And right now in this country, there is a crisis in just about every area we can think of because of the very newborn reactions to the pandemic and quarantine we all faced in the last year. So as we start this meeting, let's pause. Pause not for reflection, not for thoughts of solution, not even for thoughts of who is right and who is wrong. Let's pause and place ourselves in the shoes and the beings of the purpose that we are all here and present for, whether emotionally driven or, like myself, emotionally exhausted. Pause for our children and teachers. Pause. Silence your words, silence your opinion, silence your anxieties, and ask yourself, what if that was me? What if I was a child in this district right now? What if I was a teacher in this district? What if the person whom I am attacking or in disagreement with was me? What would I do? What would I feel? We say we want to keep emotions out of these meetings and only present facts, but the fact of the matter is that all of us are wrong, and it is past time to unite. You undo what we all know is not beneficial for all students, whether it is hard to admit or not. Neglect the idea that our experiences are the experiences of everyone and therefore are absolute truth, and instead, listen to understand instead of listen to respond. Ignore the many narratives put out into the community and society as a whole, and do your own research and studying to gather an individual position not swayed by others. Teach children by behavior rather than words. Be the example in actions, because there's been enough talking. And exercise logic. Ask yourself, have I asked my child how they feel about all of this and accepted their differences without anger? Have I asked the teacher what they are experiencing and accepted their differences without anger or judgment? Have I listened and done my own research to form my own opinion? And most importantly, have I considered that I could be wrong even though I feel I am right? It is beyond time to put weaponizing the educational environment in the first school year post-pandemic away and fight to unite.
Thank you, Dr. Armstead. Next up, we have recognitions and presentations and celebrations, which is brought to us by Shelley Hornback.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening, members of the governing board and Superintendent Gunning and our distinguished guests. We welcome all of you this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Tonight, we want to recognize some very special leaders who have recently joined our staff. So some of them couldn't be with us this evening, but we want to make sure that you recognize their names because you'll be hearing from them. They're new members to our administrative council. These are folks who will lead our district into excellence in the coming years. And I'd like to lead with our brand new lead nurse, because we have school nurses at every single campus who are addressing life-threatening illnesses, including diabetes, very serious allergies, and of course, helping us address a global pandemic. So if you have a moment, please send a welcome note to our nurse at Belen Soto Elementary School. She's now our new district lead nurse, Miss Jill Smith. Also, over in our special education department, we have a new assistant director, Amber Mager. And at L. Thomas Heck Middle School, the new assistant principal who's transferring over with this promotion from Dorado Heritage Elementary School. At L. Thomas Heck Middle School, we're welcoming Griselli Hedges. And in Verado Middle School, we've got two new leaders, an assistant principal, someone who's new to our district, Mr. Scott Lindsay. And with us this evening, the Verado Middle School brand new principal, Mr. Anthony Paduano. One new director on our team is Mr. Nathan White, our Director of Transportation. He is replacing our beloved Tommy Sims, and we're very excited to have all of these new leaders join our school district. And one other celebration for us this evening, in case you missed the front page of the West Valley View or the giant billboard that's on the I-10, we have a third grade teacher from our Thunderbird family at Palm Valley Elementary School who was named the Teachers Rock Award winner by the Kids' Choice Award through the city of Goodyear. This is Mrs. Chandra Armstrong. We are so delighted that she's being recognized by the city of Goodyear as one of the most popular teachers in the Southwest Valley. And it's very important to pause and identify that she is clearly among the best of the best, because at Palm Valley Elementary School, the Thunderbirds are an A+ school of excellence. They are an A-rated school, and they are also a national blue ribbon school. So this is among the highest achieving schools in the entire state. It's very rare to earn a national blue ribbon. Our school district has two, with Western Sky Middle School and Palm Valley Elementary School. So congratulations to Mrs. Chandra Armstrong. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hornback. Our next item on our agenda is the community opportunity for comment. I will begin by reading a disclaimer, and then I will read your name, and you may come up to the podium to speak. Public comment. Pursuant to ARS 38431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Governing board members are not permitted to discuss or take legal action on matters raised during open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. The law permits board members to ask staff to review a matter or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. First up this evening, we have Amanda Miller.
Good evening, governing board members and Superintendent Gunning. Tonight, I have a few questions and or requests regarding the ESSER 2 funds. I am requesting a breakdown of the ESSER 2 funds for the 2020-2021 school year with all the requirements. Also, I would like to request the requirements of the ESSER 3 funds and how the district plans to implement those requirements. My questions are, when was the position for the school equity lead posted, and what were the qualifications for this position? Is LESD still planning or currently using the CRC scorecard? And 3, effective grading practices. Could I get some clarification on what that is and who does that training? Thank you.
Next up, we have Michael Finnegan.
I'd like to start by asking 2 fundamental questions. Who is to decide, and by what right, the values with which children are to be raised? Who authorized outsiders to intrude into family relationships, undermine parental authority, and use brainwashing techniques on children? The board members who are promoting psychological conditioning programs like DEI have inadvertently admitted the illegitimacy of what they are doing by the stealth which with the CRT program was created. From your TEW manual, you're developing communication plan to our parents and community, but we have to be prepared. We can't do this too quickly. The many uninformed and misleading labels and descriptions of equity. You had to rewrite the original 4 goals to be less controversial, which says you're right off on the wrong foot. You rewrote the original 4 goals to be less controversial. Trouble redefining the equity statement to be less controversial. As more parents begin to understand what such terms really mean, and there is still no definition of equity, let alone data to support it. The insistence on secrecy and mandatory participation. Numerous ways of not discussing the issues raised by denials, adverse labeling, police presence at your meetings, and systematic bullying inflicted upon parents and school board members who question or challenge the need for equity. Are these the tactics of people who are doing what they have every right to do, or of people who have come to cover their tracks and work in the shadows? You members promote and carry out such programs, pay no costs when your notions turn out to be wrong, damaging to some or all of those subjected to it. It is the disdain and undermined parents who are left to handle the problems created at home and pick up the pieces. This is just another of many attitude-changing programs diverting time, money, and resources away from failing academics. And I'd like to add in relation to the override, when you go to the community and you're asking for $9.3 million, I think you ought to look at your website, which is pretty stagnant. It hasn't really changed too much, but you really don't advertise to your benefit to convince the community to vote for $9.3 million raise.
Thank you,
It's not
Mr.
clear
Finnegan.
how to understand your proposal.
Next up, we have Deborah Boehm.
Last month, I read a notice to inform the board of their constitutional responsibilities. That obviously fell on deaf ears, so we are now submitting both notices and affidavits. In addition, I would like to take a bit of time to remind each of you of your code of ethics and the real responsibilities to which you agreed when you took your oath. You agreed to render all your decisions based on all available data, and you agreed to refuse to surrender judgment to individuals and special interest groups. You agreed to allow the free expression of opinion by all board members and to seek systematic communications between the board, students, staff, and all elements of the community. You agreed to communicate to the board and the superintendent expressions of public reaction to board policies and board and school programs. Among the other things that you agreed to was that your first and greatest concern would be the educational welfare of students attending the public schools. You agreed that you would follow Arizona law and abide by the wording and intent of the law. You agreed to work to implement the community's vision for the school. I would dare say that at this present moment, you have violated numerous parts of the Arizona State Constitution. You just this week sent out a survey asking for parents and the community to validate your continuance of violation by supporting the equity statement that you've spent so long working on at such waste of taxpayer dollars, thousands and thousands of taxpayer dollars. Your job on the board is to be ambassadors to the public. Your job is to support student success in academics, reading, math, science, and real social studies. Your job is not to embed yourself in the social emotional health of students, which is the purview of parents, not the school. You are to be supporting collaboration and respect. And I've seen from several board members bullying and disrespect. In addition, addressing Ms. Moran in particular, you made a comment at the last meeting about Ibram X. Kendi. You said that just because you use a quote does not mean you agree with that person's stand. I beg to differ with you. Ibram X. Kendi is an avowed Marxist, who is fully in favor of critical race theory and the brainwashing section, also known as social emotional learning. When you quote him, you acknowledge that you agree with him. This is especially true when you boldly include his words in your equity statement, of which you are so proud. Equity, inclusion, and diversity are all just catchwords to be found in variations on the theme of critical race theory. Please do not insult us with attempts to tell us otherwise. You all should be ashamed of your effort to introduce doctrine and thinking into the school curriculum that is diametrically opposed to what the majority of the parents in the
Thank you,
community
Mrs.
would
Bohm. I
approve.
appreciate your comments.
You are served.
Next up is Cynthia Schwartz.
In April, the district posted information on their website about the West Valley View Awards. I quote, West Valley View honors LESD with a trifecta of accolades. We are thrilled to announce that the West Valley View has named Litchfield Elementary School District the 2021 Best School District, Best Place to Work, and the Best Preschool. Congratulations. So I called the West Valley View and asked them, what's the process and what does it take to get this prestigious award? The fellow who answered laughed. He said, ma'am, it's a beauty contest. I asked him to explain, and I quote, he said, you need 5 people to submit the name of your school or business to the newspaper, and you get on the ballot. And then he continued to laugh. He said, it's like American Idol. It's like Dancing with the Stars. Get your friends to vote for you, and they can vote multiple times. It's like and then he said, and I quote, you're right up there in the popularity contest for the best pest control company, the best place for happy hour, and the best auto repair shop. And then he continued to laugh and he said, ma'am, it sells newspapers. It's a popularity contest. I notice frequently the communications from some of the governing board members, the superintendent, and the administrators that have a tagline, A-rated district. With the proficiency scores in LESD at unacceptable levels, these proclamations are false advertising, and the district's administration is sounding like a bunch of used car salesmen. The car is shiny, but when you open up the hood, the engine is rusty and it doesn't turn over. It's a broken record. It sounds like a pep rally before the big game. The only problem is the students aren't winning. The students are on the receiving end of incomplete passes. There's no touchdowns in LESD. My comment to the governing board is this. You need to stop fighting amongst yourselves. You need to stop the bickering, the snarky comments, the bullying, the shouting over each other, and figure out how to get along. The administration, you need to communicate to the parents and the public, what are you doing to increase the academic level in the district, rather than jumping up and down like a bunch of cheerleaders who are excited when their team is losing 50-0. So let's fast forward to the next 10 years. What is going to be your legacy? How will you be remembered? Are you going to proudly say, hey, I really made a difference with these kids. They can read, they can write, they can get a good job, they can compete, and they can get into college? Or are you going to be the person remembered for getting out the pom-poms before the pep rally?
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Next up, Matt Langley.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you. Last summer, I had to explain to our biracial sons that they should not be ashamed to be half white, and that white men, like their father, were not inherently racist despite what liberal media was telling them. Can you imagine the pain and the hurt in their eyes and mine when I had to have that conversation? Everyone can admit there is a problem and we all want to solve it. The way this board went about it was wrong and further divided us. Your document preaches about inclusion, but it is an apparent that conflicting views were excluded from the process, as evidenced in the uproar in the community. Because we disagree with your definition of anti-racism, your own document on equity calls myself, my wife, and thousands of children and parents racist. I ask that the board revisit the equity program and specifically seek to find common ground with those of different views to solve the problem instead of ignoring one half of the voices from your district. We have done things your way, and that's why we are here today. I request that we now join together and fix the problem in a united way. I have heard many board members express putting our children first. If you mean that, then let's revisit and revise so that all voices can be heard and unified with yours. Our children have seen enough division to last a lifetime this last year. Let us lead and solve this problem collectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langley. Our last public commenter tonight is Mr. Charles Seiler.
Good evening, President, and members of the Governing Board. I'm Charles Seiler, and tonight I just wanted to come here to share a statement of support with Dr. Armstead. I just want to thank her for serving this school and the community as bravely as she can, and in alignment with the service that she was elected to do, despite horrific racist attacks and threats against her. Her mission and the mission statement of LASD says that you prepare students for the real world and a world that is diverse, global, multicultural, and ever-changing. To pretend that it's not is to rob children of the tools that they'll need to succeed in that world. So thank you, Dr. Armstead, for serving all the families and those students. The other board members, silence is complicity. So to stay silent publicly when your colleague is threatened and attacked is shameful, unless you agree with the attackers, so which is what your silence suggests. So I hope that you will join Dr. Armstead in serving all the families in LASD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seiler. Now we will move to item 6 in our agenda, which is our consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve unless someone would like to remove an item.
I motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I will
A second.
second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Dr. Armstead, would you please just clarify your vote?
I'm aye.
Thank you. Motion approved. Next, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is our action discussion items. First up is the expenditure budget adoption, which will bring back Ms. Wendy Qualls.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board. So you had my presentation earlier. Again, just to clarify, if you approve the budget as is, it'll become our adopted budget and then will be uploaded to ADE tomorrow morning. It will be available on our website and Department of Ed's website.
Does anyone have any comment or questions on the expenditure budget adoption? I'm sorry, did Mr. Honak leave? I don't know. Okay. Should we wait for him?
Can we move forward since Dr. Armstead is on the line?
So you still would have 3 votes.
Okay,
so
we will go ahead and move forward. I will entertain a motion. Is that where we are?
I motion to approve the expenditure budget adoption as presented.
I will
I
second.
s-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, or I should say any opposed, but we're all here, so motion passes. Next up is agenda item 8B, which is approval of changes to the performance pay awards, which will be presented to us by Ms. DeCoste.
You have all the information in your board packet, so I'm just here to entertain questions that you might have.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Dr. Armstead, you have some questions?
Yeah, so the only question I had was, can I get a little more clarity on why the professionalism portion was removed?
Thank you, Dr. Armstead. That was something that we had discussed at a previous board meeting, probably about 6 months ago, that the board was in agreement that that portion should be removed, that the expectation is that all employees will be professional, and if they aren't exhibiting professionalism, it would be reflected in their evaluation and not out of the career development compensation.
Okay, thank you. I'm only been here 4 months, so I just needed clarity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Melissa or Jeremy, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have a question, but I did want to just thank you again. I know we've talked about this before, but for changing the professional development section to reflect more of what it is that we're looking for from our staff, increasing the amount of time, but also making sure that it's community-based for part of it as well. So that's all.
Thank you. I think that's a win-win for a lot of our teachers because they're so involved in our community and they do a lot of things outside the school day that they don't get, so to speak, credit for. So I think it's going to be helpful that they can either get an additional 15 hours that way or through professional development.
I agree. My only comment is that I think this new performance award criteria is a step in the right direction. I would like to see us eventually go to something that is truly incentivizing, meaning in my mind, I foresee maybe a tiered plan, which would go really well with both the professional development as well as the student growth. If we had tiers, that would be potentially more of a stretch goal, maybe 3 different tiers, and then we could actually reward our teachers for their performance, especially those that are going above and beyond, and we'd be able to incentivize and award them for that. So just something to think about as this continues to evolve. Again, I think this is a great step in the right direction and definitely mimics and mirrors the strategic plan and the goals that the governing board has for this type of incentive.
Okay. And we do have tiered performance pay in the performance pay section. That's kind of a Litchfield thing in the way that they kept career ladder around years and years ago when it let go. So maybe looking at that framework and tying the two together might be possible.
Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion then.
I motion to for the approval of changes to the performance pay awards for 2021, 2022, and career development and performance compensation plan 2021, 2022.
I second.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Dr. Armstead. The ayes have it and motion approved. We will now move on to item 8C, which is approval of the 2021-2022 Performance Award Plan, which will be presented by Ms. Sanders.
Members of the board, this evening, we present to you the 2021-2022 Performance Award Plan document. It is a document that we have to have approved each year. All of the performance award pays reflect the budget as presented by Mrs. Qualls. And the additional changes within the document also reflect the changes you just approved in Mrs. DeCoste's item just presented.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Just to clarify, we're just approving this document, right? But we've already approved all the pieces that are in it.
Correct.
Okay. Then I motion to approve the 2021-2022 Performance Award Plan as presented.
I will
A
second.
second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you again, Dr. Armstead. Motion approved. The last item we have for action this evening is item 8D, which is lease of land to F&F Construction, and that will be presented to us by Ms. Qualls.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board. So Arizona Department of Transportation has approved a contract to widen I-10 from Verado Way out to State Route 85. So part of the construction, the contractors need access to water to be able to do their dust control. So the construction company asked if we would be interested in leasing some of the land out at Scott Liddy for them to create a water pond. They've contacted at least 3 different organizations trying to come up with the best plan for them. So I know we are not their first choice, but once they decide what they need to do, it'll have to happen quickly. So I'm just asking tonight for approval for Superintendent Gunning and I to work with the contractor if we are their choice, to determine the best location for the water pond and to work out agreements with them for the lease of the land.
Can you say that one more time, Wendy, what it is that you're asking us to approve exactly?
So to authorize Superintendent Gunny and myself, our legal team, to work with the contractor, if they choose to move forward with us, to work out an agreement to lease the land. It would probably be a 2-year lease agreement. I believe different options would be that the pond could stay or we could ask for it to be filled in. So just details like that we'd work on.
And then would this be like our previous land lease agreement discussion where when terms are finalized, you would bring that back to us, or we're giving you permission to execute the agreement?
So permission all the way through execution, but we would keep you updated on what we end up with. But it would just need to happen so quickly. If there's time, definitely we'd come back and update you.
Okay, and there's really no cons to this. This is land we're not using right now. It would just be additional funding that we would receive during this 2-year timeframe.
Not only the funding, but the benefit to the district is they would pay, we talked about with our other agreement that the waterway does not go under Thomas Road. They would make that improvement, which would help us in the future. If we were to build any facilities on that land, the water would have a way to that property. So that is the main benefit to us if they would select our district.
So they would be improving the property
Yes,
and they would remove the pond when they're done.
if we wanted it to
If
be.
you wanted them
removed.
to, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so, and obviously you're going to get the best deal you can.
Right.
Yeah.
And to minimize the impact on transportation, since it is by our transportation, that would be part of what we would discuss is with the location, how would it impact our operations for 2 years?
Is this south of the White Tanks Center? Is that it? That,
So it's west of and south. So
I
if you
see.
think about the parking lot that's at the support services, it would be the land to the west.
Right.
And then also down to the south and wrap around. So somewhere on that parcel, we would authorize for them to put the pond.
Okay, and so if I'm understanding, that's a little west of the land that we lease to the person who wants to do farming.
So an update on that lease, since it does tie into that same property. They have gotten a lease, other property north of us. And I've asked if they want to continue looking at that lease with us, and they haven't responded.
I see. Okay,
So as far for right now, this would be the lease that we'd be looking at.
Okay, any other questions?
motion to approve.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion approved. Okay, next up is agenda item 9A, which is a discussion on the governing board pro statement for our upcoming M&O override that I guess I am leading. Okay, so is that correct, Jody? Okay. One of the things that we have to do or we are allowed to do as a governing board is to include a statement in the pamphlet that goes out to all voters, why we would ask them to support our upcoming override. You should have a copy of draft number 1 in front of you. And I would open up the floor for any comments or suggestions on the statement.
I think the statement looks great. It's to the point. It tells people why we would like them to support it without being too wordy. I like it.
Thank you, Melissa. Dr. Armstead, do you have any comments on the board statement for override?
The only comment that I would have in this statement, and this is only in light of what's going on in society right now and what I am seeing with students. Somewhere, is it possible for us to include how the district is going to use this for the benefit of the students' mental health? Because I think moving forward, post-pandemic, that's going to be one of the most significant concerns.
Superintendent Gunning, do you have any commentary as to how that might be addressed?
Since this is a continuation of our current override, these were the criteria that we already had in place of what they support and continue to support. So I think that recruitment and retention of our highly effective teachers is a key piece, which I think links directly back into the mental health, maintaining our nurses and supporting all of our PE, music and art. We are looking at, and I'll talk a little bit more later in my superintendent's update in regards to ESSER 3 funding and how we are planning to utilize some of those dollars to help additional supports for our emotional well-being of our children.
Anything else, Dr. Armstead? Mr. Honig?
No,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Tara.
No, I understand that viewpoint, but I'm just saying, even though this is a continuation, society is changing. And so we don't know the lasting effects that this is going to have on students. And like I will always say, being an educator myself, if I don't know or I can't help a student to be okay emotionally, then I can't do anything else as a professional. So I think in light of the pandemic and that still being on the hearts and minds of people, including that while it's on our minds, that would open up other individuals' minds and say, hey, okay, this district really is taking a step forward, a step ahead, and looking at the holistic being of my child rather than just those things that we were focused on before this catastrophe happened.
Thank you, Dr. Armstead. I am unsure when the deadline is for this statement to be approved. Superintendent Gunning, do you know, or Ms. Qualls, do you know when the statement needs to be approved? It's just discussion tonight, but it'll be at the next meeting.
I believe it's at the end of July. We have to have it approved to turn it in right at the very beginning of August 6th.
Okay, so at our special meeting, July 27th.
Mhm.
Okay, Dr. Armstead, if you could put some thought into and maybe come up with a suggestion for the verbiage that you'd like to see contained in this statement, we can certainly discuss it and try to incorporate that in draft number 2 that we will discuss and potentially adopt at our special meeting later this month.
Will do.
Thank you. Mr. Honak, do you have any comments or feedback?
No, I don't think so. We've had some comments from the public that.
Okay. My only comment on this is in the sentence that says this is not a tax increase. It is a continuation of the local funding that has been in place for more than 20 years. While that is a true statement, I would like to see some sort of clarification that the current level of funding has only been in place for 4 or 5 years, because there has been an increase in the last 20 years when we increased from the 10% override to the 15% override. So I just don't want it to appear as though it would be misleading in any way, shape, or form. Does that make sense? Okay. Great. Any other discussion? Excellent. We will revisit this at our special meeting later this month. Next up is item 9B, which is superintendent performance-based compensation goals for the upcoming school year. Brought to us by Superintendent Gunning.
Thank you, members of the governing board. I'd like to present to you the draft of our goals for this next year and receive any input. So under student success, looking at nurture positive relationships between teachers and students, ensure an ongoing district-wide student center focus. This focus and these areas, these goals that came directly out of our strategic plan felt were very pertinent at this time of coming out of a pandemic. So being able to focus in those areas. Under the people component, maintain high retention rate of our employees and recruit and continuously develop high quality employees. Felt again, coming out of a pandemic, really making sure to focus on that culture and climate so that we can retain our highly performing teachers, as well as look into different efforts to increase our recruitment potential. And then under service, consistently communicate academic progress to all parents and guardians throughout the year. We felt this, or I felt this would be very important this year, since we know we have a lot of information to communicate as kids are coming in and we're trying to figure out exactly where they're sitting as they're coming into the year. And then under finance and resources, offer quality programs and extracurricular opportunities across all schools. The thought in this goal is we have never done a district analysis of especially our extracurricular activities, clubs, those types of things, of opportunities for all of our children. We want to make sure that we maximize those opportunities. Of course, how we will get there, I will work with our principals to also work with our teachers and our staff to look at ways and strategies and supports and resources of how we can support in getting there. But I would entertain and love any feedback that you have.
Thank you. Does anyone have any feedback for Superintendent Gunning?
I like the fact that you're going to look at offering quality programs and extracurricular opportunities. This has been something that's been really important to me too, to make sure we're offering consistency across our district. And I think it's great that we want to actually evaluate what do we offer where and how can we make sure that all our kids have access to the same things. So I'm glad to see this on there.
I'm happy that student success is the first one. My concern is that the goals are everything is just sort of in vague, flowery language, empowering students, to reach their highest potential. That's good, but there's no specifics in it. And specifically, I think we need to address very strongly the fact that we are, from the standpoint of academics, nowhere near an A school district. We're, I don't know, 57, 56% proficiency. And there are lots of reasons for that. But to me, that's a two alarm fire, you know, or something along that line, where we really need, our goal needs to be use scientific studies, you know, peer, you know, data that has been shown over and over, things that we're not doing, going out aggressively seeking, you know, what is going on over at Alhambra, what is going on in Tucson, what is going on in other school districts that truly are highly achieving, and acting like our kids' lives depend upon it, because they do. And to just say, you know, nurture relationships with teachers and students and ongoing district-wide student center focus, those are meaningless statements. They don't have anything that is really means that anything's going to change. It's just kind of the same platitudes without specifically addressing it. And my goal is, why shouldn't Litchfield Elementary School District be one of the best in the state or the country? What are we here for? Why are we, you know, why do we have all the great teachers? We got beautiful facilities. We're a relatively prosperous community. Why not? You know, why not? Why can't we? I know it's possible here, and lots of people know it's possible here. It's not, but we're not looking at it, and we're hiring outside consultants and things like that. We should have, you know, with $88 million budget and 15 schools and whatever, you know, we should be able to get some real expertise here that's seeing what can we do to make it better. I have lots of ideas. Lots of people have lots of ideas. But it's not my job. It's your job as a superintendent to do this. And that needs to be aggressively pursued. That's the great equalizer. That's the thing that draws, you know, disparities together. You know, when everybody succeeds, all of a sudden there's no disparity. And that's not a pipe dream. It's happening in other schools. One of them 14 miles from here. We can argue about, well, this is different there, that's different there, but there's obviously things that people are doing, and we're not, I don't see any evidence that we're pursuing specific things. And so maybe we need to appoint some people to go out and see what's being done. I'm not impressed with, like, this one organization. I thought it was on the agenda tonight. You know, you look on the website and you Google them, and the first 15 items are all their website. And then you find something that's not from them that says, not so good. You know, it's like, we don't need a firm to tell us how to do this or how to train our teachers or whatever. We should become the experts. We're supposed to be experts and learn expertise. So I think it's wonderful that student success is up there, but the goals are kind of meaningless. They're just all platitudes. And I think we need, if you don't plan, you know, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And right now we're planning to fail because we don't really have any plan on how to improve. Just to say, well, we're going to empower and improve teacher, kid. Well, a lot of it has to do with parents. And honestly, we have the opportunity to reach out to a lot of parents. They are entrusting us with their kids, and we have the opportunity to reach out to them in a very personal way that is going to make them feel empowered and included. And because after all, they're their kids and they want their kids to do better and to be behave better at home and whatever. And so that's essential. That's not an option. There's not any, and anybody that's not behind that, I think you're in the wrong district here. That's what we should be doing here.
So may I add a little bit of clarity? So the goals, my goals, which is just one small little component of piece of what we plan and do every single year, come directly from our strategic plan, which was designed in 2019. So that was something that was an effort done with our community and our staff and our leaders to design this. So that's where it comes from. From there, this becomes very, very detailed with a scorecard and progress monitoring and strategic actions. But like you said, that's my job. So then I take it and run from there. But I would love and I would encourage to spend time with me over the next 6 months to the year to really look and learn about all the programs and all the things that we do. We are so complex and there are so many pieces, but there are so many pieces that are outstanding and wonderful. And that's what makes us one of the top districts and why I hear every single day why people move to our area and choose our district. So that's what I would love for you to do is I know there's so much more and I know you've been trying to learn as fast as you possibly can. But I would love to spend more time with you to be able to share all of those things. But that's where those goals come from. So it's not, I select directly from the strategic plan and look at our current environment and the current situation that we're in to really target the areas that I think will be most beneficial for the children. Because my goal is that I obtain all of this and have very strategic actions in plan that sustain after 2024, that becomes then automatic and just rote. And then in that 2024 timeframe, we'll establish a new strategic plan with new goals and new initiatives and pillars.
Well, thank you. And I understand that. And I'm new to the process about, I mean, a lot of these goals that were set in the past, it was kind of shocking to me looking at the board goals. And the first one is kind of to figure out what the goals are or whatever. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just looking at it as a objective person saying, wait a minute, why is not the goal to make, and I know there are wonderful things going on. I know there are wonderful teachers. I know there's all kinds of programs going on and I can go look at them but that's not solving the situation that the rubber meets the road with almost half the kids not being proficient at math and English, period, amen, done. It doesn't matter how wonderful it is here and there and sitting and going around, pardon me, and looking at all these different things. You still get to a metric of we're here to teach. How good of a job are we doing? Not that good. Not that good, not as good as we can and should, not even close. They're doing it with a lot less in other schools, in other school districts. And so maybe rather than me go looking at what is working here, maybe you guys need to go look at what's working at other places that are having kids up in the 80-90% achievement as opposed to 56, 57, which is here.
I would like to clarify, as I did in the last board meeting, that Alhambra district actually, their traditional school actually performs less successfully than our traditional academy, which is a selective program very similar to Alhambra's traditional school. So we are doing that. So you really should attempt to compare apples to apples when it comes to those selective programs, because our selective program, which is the traditional academy, is actually outperforming Alhambra. So I think when and I think it's a great idea to learn from other school districts. There's a lot of things that maybe programs we haven't considered in the past, which is one of the reasons that we do hire outside consultants who are working with school districts across the country to let us know what programs are working and what we should be doing and could be doing. Hiring a consultant is a much more efficient way to gain that knowledge than having our own employees try to research what's happening in 49 other states.
Well, Kim, that's a false flag argument. I never said that. I just said you can't, it's a different situation everywhere. Okay. But one of the things about Alhambra is they have an entire school. Okay.
Yes,
And
they
I
do.
understand there's a lot of things about how, there are, people can't drive across the district to go to one school, and you have it. And yes, there's a lot of complexity, and I'm not naive to sit and say, well, you also said at the last meeting, well, we're just doing everything fine. We're not just doing everything fine. And there are entire school districts that have high achieving, not single schools. I picked Alhambra because it's very close by, and Alhambra is very unique. There are books written about it. There's a lot going on there. It's not just, they have a traditional academy just like we do. They don't. They're very, very different. And that's kind of being, wow, I don't know why there's so much resistance about the fact that almost half our kids aren't reading. That's enough right there. That's just enough right there. It's not,
So maybe
it's
if-
not being addressed. Okay, it's not being addressed. There's no more to say.
So
There's no
maybe
more
if
to say. The results are there. If you've got a plan to go change that dramatically, but I can tell you in other states, other things, we're not even on the charts compared to what is going on in other places. Arizona is 49th in the nation. Okay, and just because the
Well,
phony
that's
Arizona.
in funding. That's in funding, not test scores.
No, it's not.
No,
Kim.
that is in
It's-
funding.
It's a rating on all sorts of things. It's a
No, that
rating
is
on
not
all
true.
sorts of things. And
Okay, let's stick to the agenda, please. So we should be speaking
that is on
about
the
the
agenda. Excuse me,
superintendent's
Board
goals.
President. This is a matter related to the agenda. Okay, and to sit here, you've been telling me I'm not on the agenda. It's related to the agenda, and it's something that is just. It's shocking, okay? Everybody knows there are other states out there, there are other things we can, but to sit there and just all your responses is, oh, we're doing everything just fine. Well, it's not fine. It isn't. It's not fine. And you guys want an override and you're sitting here pretending it's all A+, and you're going on with your equity thing and whatever.
I will remind you once again that the Arizona
the
Department of
public wants
Education has
good
rated us
schools.
as an A+ district. We have not rated ourselves as an A+ district. I have said that in the last numerous board meetings, and I will continue to say that until you can get the facts straight.
So Board Member Honak, I would appreciate if you feel free to just email any suggestions or ideas that you have. I would love to hear from those.
I presented one a few weeks ago.
Dr. Armstead, do you have any feedback on the superintendent goals for 2021, 2022?
No, I don't, not at this time.
Thank you. My only feedback is that I'm happy to see us rotating through the goals. As you mentioned, Superintendent Gunning, it's a hefty load, all of these goals. And so I'm glad to see some different things going onto the agenda so that we can hopefully get these accomplished or as close as we can with the limited resources that we have before we revamp and revise in the 2024 year. This is for discussion only. Is there any additional discussion from any board members this evening? Great, then we will move on to agenda item 10A, which is the report from Superintendent Gunning.
Thank you, members of the governing board. First, I'd love to celebrate that we have our principals back. They joined us yesterday, so they're back. Of course, they've been working all summer, but we're very excited to have our entire team back. to begin working in our school year. Today, I attended a mini session with Superintendent Watson's office with fellow superintendents to just answer questions, get feedback and ideas on things that they're working on to try to help us in recruiting and retaining teachers. So I was very excited to be a part of that. This is the last week of our summer meals program, but also we are very excited that our free meals will continue throughout the school year. So we're very excited to offer that through next school year. This week, things to look out for is the governing board sent out an equity statement survey so that everyone has that. So if we could, we encourage everyone to give us the feedback in regards to that. And that is in a news item on our webpage if you're wondering where to find that. Next week, you will see email and information coming from me looking for feedback in regards to our goals in those areas as well. So, and that will be a news item. It'll be linked together so it's easy to find, but we will be looking for feedback and encourage feedback in that area. Currently as well, we're looking for feedback in regards to our school reopening plan. So if you might have seen that last year, we did revamp it and revise it, made the changes with our face coverings, that face coverings are optional coming into the next school year, but we would love feedback from our community and our parents and our staff in relation to that reopening plan. The other thing that we are working on in beginning stages is our ESSER 3 planning. So with the ESSER 3 planning, the main focus in that arena will be reading, math, and of course, our emotional needs, social emotional needs of our students. We'll be working with our leaders and staff to develop a plan. We'll bring ideas back to you all in August, and then we'll also obtain community and parent and staff input as well in regards to that plan. And the final thing is that I was able to meet with a lieutenant and several sergeants from the City of Avondale Police Department as they are taking over this area. And we are very excited to partner with them. So they will become the new public service supports for the Litchfield Park, the City of Litchfield Park. And so we were very excited to meet with them and to see how they would support this area as well.
Thank you, Superintendent Gunning. Now we will hear reports from our governing board members. Melissa Zaidema, would you like to go first this evening?
This has been a really quiet month. I don't really have a lot to say this time. So this month I have mostly been momming, I feel like, because it's been pretty calm and quiet finally this year. But I did attend, we had our special meeting. We also had our executive session meeting for our superintendent's review, which I think has been my favorite meeting for this year so far, because it was very calm. It was very nice to be able to have civil conversation with board members and not be fighting, and to be able to discuss things and come to consensus about things in a professional manner. It was very refreshing. I finished up the advocacy conference that I was doing through NSBA, which was really great. A lot of it was about the technology divide, basically, and how we are working on that. And I was very impressed with our district. When everybody talked about all the problems they had, we had the same ones, obviously, as everyone else, with trying to get technology into kids' hands. And our district just really stepped up to the plate and made sure we got that done. That was a priority for us, and we just hit it out of the park, and we made sure everybody had what they needed. So I was just really proud of our district. As we were hearing from other districts, the struggles they faced, it's always nice to hear that we are not alone, but that we also have a great way of moving forward and getting through and solving a problem. And that's pretty much it. It's been very quiet this month, so.
Thank you, Melissa. Dr. Armstead?
Yeah, so as I always do it, I speak about professional things I've done first, and then personal. On a professional level, I have been digging more into dyslexia. I attended a professional development on that, and I learned a lot of information that led me to some questions for the district. The first thing that I wasn't truly strong in as far as knowledge was the fact that dyslexia is very, very misdiagnosed. And most of the time, we have students when they show deficiencies in reading and writing and language, it is on the more moderate side of dyslexia. But the problem that we have in relation to dyslexia is that we're not testing students as a nation really until they're 5.5 years old. And so by the time they're tested, there's a lot of catch up that has to be done. And so during that process of them catching up is where they end up getting misdiagnosed. Boys typically get diagnosed with ADHD a lot higher, when it could be that these boys are really showing their coping mechanisms, which is to act out or to draw the attention away from their weaknesses, instead of, of course, children are not going to admit where they need help. So in this professional development, they spoke about how when we are in the classrooms as professional educators, being mindful of the fact that dyslexia is usually diagnosed as ADHD. Students will get diagnosed with ADHD when that's not what's going on. Also, some of the pointers that they had was that we don't recognize dyslexia because it's not even the letters that are in different positions and all that type of stuff, that this is literally an auditory processing disorder. And because these students typically have very strong coping mechanisms, we as teachers don't recognize it. And we will only see it, like I said, with boys when they're acting out, but then with girls, they tend to retreat and avoid being recognized. So as a teacher sitting in this professional development, like I said, it made me wonder if as Litchfield as a district, the reason that we're seeing these low rates in reading and writing and math and proficiency overall, I'm not saying all students have dyslexia, but is it possible that we have students who are misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all, and they're not getting the true services that they need? And therefore, that's why we're seeing the results that we have. Is it bigger than just behavior? Is it bigger than just needing additional resource to be pulled out of the classroom? Could it be that these students are the ones that have those high coping skills and we don't see it, we don't recognize it? So I am still in contact with the person who led the professional development, and she said there are individuals who are pushing in Arizona for them to start testing for dyslexia as soon as 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old, instead of waiting till kindergarten or first grade. And I know I've heard from various individuals in the community that feel like their students with dyslexia are not getting serviced. And I wonder, is that because we as educators don't really know and maybe could use more training? So that was professionally. On a personal side, just like I mentioned before, I've been watching the Phoenix Suns. I don't want to jinx it, but I believe they purposely lost the game so that they can bring the trophy home here. So that has been what I've been doing for the last month. I'm preparing for the next school year, preparing myself emotionally for my son being in high school 20 years after I've graduated from high school, and kind of hoping that, again, as I've said this whole meeting, that we really, really look into how we can help these students mentally. It is very scary what I have been seeing as far as the crises. They're calling it crises of mental health. And it's not just with middle schoolers, it's starting at very young ages, and there's not enough resources for these students. So I really am trying to look into how I can be a resource so that my students and the students in LESD feel supported and know that even if their emotions, they can't express it right, that I'm here to help them and guide them along the way.
Thank you, Dr. Armstead. Mr. Honak?
I don't have anything really to report, so.
Okay, thank you. Then I will give my report. I am with Melissa here. I was a pretty quiet month, but I did get to participate in the superintendent review, which the process itself has come a long way over the last few years, and we're getting better at that, I think, every year. I also had the privilege of volunteering one day at the YMCA with a program called Safety Around Water. I'm on the committee with the Southwest Valley YMCA, and I was able to connect some of our students in our summer school summer boost program through the help of Mr. Scudder, as well as Ms. Hornback and Superintendent Gunning, all helped to assist to provide 150 of our students with free swim lessons at the Y. And it was just awesome to see these kids so excited to go in the water. And they also received some training on CPR, as well as just general safety around water. The majority of the rest of my month was actually spent in self-care. So I want to talk about that for a little bit. I know that we put more emphasis on that as a district in the last couple of years, and the last year specifically in light of the pandemic as well. So for me, what I have found is one of the biggest pieces of my self-care is connection with people. So I spent the last 20 days driving around the country, visiting 10 different states on a road trip to look into the eyes and faces and hug the necks of about 46 different people who are in my family and friends of mine. And it was so healing to sit at the dining table with them or sit in a living room and talk and laugh and cry and just get that physical, human, in-person connection that I personally had been missing a great deal over the last 18 months. So I say that because I want to encourage all of our teachers and our administrators and all of our employees, if you haven't yet taken some time for self-care this summer, please do, whether that's just getting yourself that extra cup of coffee one day or sitting down and reading a book for an hour. Just take some time for you so that we can come back in a few short weeks and welcome our students for what I believe will be our best year ever. I would like to close in my traditional way by quoting some song lyrics. This song is called February 7 by the Abet Brothers. And they say, "Now I'm rested and I'm ready to begin." That is my board report for tonight. I would like to thank the administrators for submitting their reports this summer. We have fewer reports this month because our principals had some time away. I look forward to hearing about the beginning of the school year at our next general board meeting. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Dr. Armstead. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Good night.